rush into frame.
You know, no rush, man. Take your time.
Yeah.
Drink.
I feel like I'm sitting down with my strange nemesis.
Oh, well, I mean, to some extent, I can understand that. I mean, I don't know how much we want to get into it right now, but you know, but yeah.
Well, that's why we're here.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get it, cause I really understand your beef with everybody's opinions on DC.
It's just the way I feel as if sometimes there's a little bit of an unfair standard held to DC that might not be held to Marvel in some instances. Things that I feel like people don't let DC get away with, I see Marvel in the movies. Probably should preface that. Get away with
Live action movies.
Because most people don't hate or even have a problem with DC animated movies. There's some, I mean, I'm not so DC fanboy that I can't admit that there's some I don't like. Like I didn't like Batman Bad Blood. That's my favorite character.
That one was problematic.
Yeah. I didn't like Mike's upside down there.
Oh.
There you go.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all good. Still, it's fine. But but like Bad Blood, I didn't care for. The Teen Titan ones, I thought I would like more, and I didn't dislike it. I just didn't love it. You know what I mean? But in terms of like the live action movies, a Suicide Squad was a dumpster fire, and that's putting it nicely.
Okay.
And I can admit that. I really can. But things that that people took Batman v Superman
to task for.
Yeah, like a lot of it is warranted, but some of it I'm like, like for instance, a lot of people had an issue with how freaking not Zod, but I always have a hard time with Doomsday. People always take that to so far. Like, well, what about Doomsday? Doomsday looked horrible. I'm like, Doomsday, once he mutated and got the horns, looked like Doomsday. I don't know what else people would expect. Was it the origin story of how it was altered? Was that the problem?
Well, I feel partially like we're kind of jumping the gun here by going straight to BVS, because I think a lot of problems stem first and foremost from Man of Steel.
Okay, that's fair.
If we start there, we can kind of coordinate where and graph where the problem starts to reveal itself a little bit more.
Okay.
I mean, in comparison to Marvel, I can agree that there are expectations that people have with Marvel movies that allows them to overlook certain things. Because if you go with like your Metacritics and your Rotten Tomatoes, which I remember that's another post for another part of the topic, that there are some Marvel movies that, while are pretty bad, Thor: The Dark World is one that stands out all the time.
I wanted to like that movie.
There were parts of it that I thought I would enjoy. I love the person in cast for the villain, Chris Eccleston. Is it Chris Eccleston? I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but the Ninth Doctor. You know, and he's my favorite Doctor. I know everybody's on Doctor 10, the 10th Doctor, but Nine's my favorite personally.
Is this Doctor Who? Or
yes,
about?
Doctor
I've
Who.
never seen it.
Doctor
so
Who. For everyone else paying attention, you know,
okay.
you know. But so there was definitely parts of it, but it still has higher scores than a lot of movies out there that it probably deserves because it's a Marvel movie.
Thor: Dark World.
Thor: Dark World, yes. Okay. When it comes to the DC, first thing, Zack Snyder is okay.
I agree.
There's a few movies of his I thoroughly enjoy.
Which one?
Dawn of the Dead, I thought was.
I don't know if I've seen
it's a horror movie, zombie. So I get you might.
No, I've seen that.
Okay.
One. I've seen that one. It took me some. I had to go into the archives on that one, but yes, I've seen that one.
It's a fun zombie movie in my opinion. Gory, but still it amps up. It does what it needs to do.
Right.
Nice ending, especially for the credits. Guardians, Legend of the Guardians, Owls of Galoo, or something like that.
Yeah. He did that?
totally underrated movie. I think not
He
enough
did
people
that.
know he did that.
I would have never guessed. I never pegged. I mean, maybe I should have guessed he would do an animated thing because he does, regardless of what we think of him as a director, because even I have some opinions about him. He does really. He appreciates animation so much. I think that's where he bases a lot of his cinematography on.
And I think if he should probably give animations another try, because
Like
that
a fair
movie
shot.
because that movie I thought was quite good, and it sets itself up for a sequel that at this point, unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever get it, but it was a good movie. I enjoyed it.
We
Surprisingly,
didn't think we would get Incredibles 2, but here we are.
fair enough. I thought 300 was all right.
Really, just all right.
It's entertaining, and that gets the point across. And I remember watching it plenty of times. Like, is it a good movie by traditional standards? Not really. Like, the plot is very subpar and basic. And
Well, it's just straightforward.
It's very straightforward.
It's not very complex aside the fact that you had. I don't know if I should call them politicians or deities or ogres or whatever they were that were working behind the scenes of Greece to make that deal with Xerxes, but I wouldn't call that deep. That anybody could write that technically.
Yeah,
you know, it's not.
But I mean, he was also between that and Watchmen. He's working with what he was given, and he had a script essentially and the storyboards provided for him, and he translated those very well. Between that and Watchmen, and those are two more movies that
You enjoy.
I think he did a very good job on.
You know, I hated Watchmen the first time I saw it, and a funny story. I went to go see Watchmen because I've always loved comics and I've always loved movies. And so, of course, when they come together, I'm all in. And I remember when I went to go see Watchmen, I went to a theater, and it was in the hood, and all the speakers were blown.
Oh shit! Yeah.
All the speakers in the theaters were blown. But I do remember the cinematography, as always with Zack Snyder, was just immaculate.
Yeah, and that's the good thing. Like, I think he either needs to be a cinematographer or be a co-director like the Russo brothers do, or something like where he has a partner who can take over the storytelling elements and Zack can provide the flair.
Now I can agree because he did Sin City, and if you look at Sin City, they always say, "Oh well, you know, it's a Zack Snyder movie." Well,
No, that was Sin City was Robert Rodriguez.
No, Robert Rodriguez did Planet Terror. Well, excuse me, I'm wrong. Robert Rodriguez did Help, but Quentin Tarantino, if you look at the credits, you pull it up, Quentin Tarantino, Zack Snyder, and I believe Roger Rodriguez helped make that vision possible. If you look at the storytelling of Sin City, that has Quentin Tarantino all over it.
Yeah, no.
The non-linear form of storytelling. You know, it's like when you pair someone who does story better than anyone being Quentin Tarantino, and then you get somebody who does cinematography almost better than anyone, you're gonna have a smash hit. So it's not that you trying to find it.
Oh yeah, and Snyder wasn't on that. It was Rodriguez and Tarantino and Frank Miller a little bit, for some small parts.
It doesn't have Zack Snyder. Why am I thinking Zack Snyder? Are we sure? Can you say Sin City Zack Snyder and see what pops up for that? Hold on, people. They're going to be watching this on YouTube like, why are they fact-checking right now?
In the middle of the show?
In the middle of the show.
Well, you can do some jump cuts. Philip DeFranco. No.
Yeah, so he's accredited to it in here somewhere.
See, that's even still saying Robert, but that's all going into like comments. So I think people just happen to mention them around the same time or something.
We'll just cut out the waiting part we had. So the thing is like, but I do agree. The point is, I do agree with you. I think Zack Snyder needs a co-director badly in a lot of times, because I think, but in fairness, like if we're gonna start with, like, Man of Steel was his baby. It's very widely known that Man of Steel was something that he pretty much had majority creative control over and not a whole lot of interference.
But see, the thing with that one though is we got to be careful on how much influence we credit to him on that one, because remember they brought in Batman Begins, the guy
Christopher Nolan?
Christopher Nolan. They brought him in as like a producer to try to help get the series, the whole DC world started initially. And I think that is credit to one part of why it's so dark, because it's like, all right, well, he did that with Batman, let's trust his influence in there. And again, he's a producer, so we can't immediately assume he had a lot of influence, because not all producers do.
The word is that he was a producer more so in name and to get the script.
The script and the credit.
So that's the only people who know that for sure is God, Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder, whoever was in charge of WB at the time.
But I'll just say that to say between that, I think David Goyer had influence on the story a little bit. I know he was in BVS, which he's also quoted as saying, when we get to the point of Batman versus Superman, we run out of ideas. So we're already dealing with a person. When we get to Batman versus Superman.
But that's a Warner Brothers problem. Because Zack Snyder wanted a completely different story to follow.
I'm sure. I'm just saying this is like prequel territory as to why BVS failed. In my opinion, because you're also dealing with someone who has good ideas, because he gave us Blade. I'll give him that, David Goyer. Thank you for Blade, because everybody says.
Did you do Blade 2?
I think he did Blade 2, Blade 2 as well. So thank you for that, because.
Why didn't you do Blade 3, asshole? Kidding.
But also, no, I lost my train of thought on that one.
Sorry.
But
you were thinking David Goyer.
David Goyer, he gave us that, and I always say, well, yeah, sure, X-Men and Spider-Man officially kicked off the comic book movies, but Blade is like one of the first ones that I feel, at least in the 90s, got it right. And didn't really get the credit
it deserved.
And I think it's overlooked quite often because of that.
It is overlooked.
And people don't remember that it's a comic book movie until it gets pointed out, oh yeah, comic book movie, Blade, horror. Awesome, fight scenes, great.
We've got to remember to come back and have the Wesley Snipes conversation, because he wants to reprise his role really badly.
That's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, I think on that one we're probably really going to agree quite hard. But here's my thing with Man of Steel, before we get into Batman v Superman. Mm-hmm. So many people complain about it being dark. Now, aesthetically, should it have been dark, in terms of the color grading? No. I mean, I get that it was edgy, and like you said, it was trying to follow a style that was implemented by the Dark Knight series. That I will not debate at all. I mean, it's correct. However, if you think about the way this movie is structured, we're looking at it through the eyes of, if this was a real event, and you had a being that existed that challenged, or not even challenged, but superseded any military power existing on this planet, and refuting or challenging the existence of so many religions, most people are not going to be happy at first, just at first exposure, that this being exists, which in turn is not going to make the being that exists in this world as happy, especially when they're trying to do something good. And I think that's what I'm hoping, but that's always was my interpretation of it. I wouldn't expect, if you and me walked outside tomorrow and there was a real life Superman, I would have some questions. I would have some concerns. I'm not sure I would be so thrilled about this, because you can melt the planet at any given moment, and no one can do anything about it.
And I agree with that approach, but I think intention versus execution is the issue with a lot of DC. Between that, BVS, especially BVS, and then also Justice League.
Right.
You have all the best intentions in the world, but how you execute it is what it comes down to. And it sets up a lot of great ideas with what you're saying. Within the Man of Steel and the DCEU's universe, and their goal and plan of what would be great, but just how they choose to approach all those aspects becomes a problem. Now, I haven't watched the movie in a while, and I find it very hard to sit through the entire movie, to be honest.
Man of Steel?
Yes. Honestly, all of them, to be honest. They're all kind of tough to sit through. Honestly, most recently, Justice League is probably the one I can see myself trying to watch, because I had probably the most fun in that one.
It wasn't boring, for all of its problems that people had with it. The unanimous thing that seems to be the case is, well, it didn't bore me.
And specifically also because they said we're only going to do this at 2 hours. We're not going past 2 hours. So I know, all right, I can sit through it for 2 hours, or I can jump through to the more entertaining points within those 2 hour period.
It felt longer than that, though.
And that's another problem with the movie. But even going back to like even Wonder Woman had some issues for me.
Yeah, I'm not the person.
Like, by all means,
I'm the first person who will be to tell you. Yes, but it is not. It's not genre breaking in the sense of it's right how it's written. It's genre breaking. Who is a woman in the middle of this women's revolution that we're experiencing right now? It's an important film.
Absolutely.
I get that, but if you go by the 3-act structure, beat for beat, it's not Captain America.
Yeah, and I do think, I don't want to say it's not overrated at all. I think it is overhyped because, one, we're comparing it to the rest of the DCEU, but also, two, there's not much else out there other than completely terrible female-led or women-led, I'm trying not to say female, women-led superhero movies, Elektra, Catwoman.
Oh, I forgot about Elektra. I feel bad for Holly.
Yeah.
Because I believe if you, just from the physical aspect of it, she looks a lot. She kind of portrays what Selena Kyle is, and physically.
Even though she's not Selena Kyle.
Even though she's not Selena Kyle, but this is true. But if you were to take her now and put her in a more serious, better, much better written, like who had the idea? Beyond that, who cleared the idea to say, oh, the villain is going to be someone who poisons the world through makeup?
It's, again,
it was extremely sexist idea, first of all.
Again, everything just about, unfortunately, that DC main universe characters has come from in movie-wise has been a struggle. Fair enough.
Comics, we both know that comics historically incredibly, both sides, Marvel and DC, had incredibly sexist moments. For God's sakes, back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for anime to watch.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that. Even fairly recently, the Ultimates, he was still in the movie. Even Reed Richards, Sue Storm, traditionally was always back in the 60s.
The way they portray not Jean Grey, Rogue. You know,
I think even Jean Grey to some extent, but
probably I wasn't big on reading X-Men or the show as a kid.
No, definitely not the TV show. They definitely didn't portray that in the TV show.
Well, what I'm saying is I did not watch the X-Men show.
Oh my god!
But you know what it was? Even as a kid, I appreciated how much better the Spider-Man animated series was animated over X-Men.
See, and this is the perfect time where you would cut to and especially over this.
Put it in post.
But back on topic with it's just backtracking, I guess, a little bit. It really just comes down to your intention versus execution, and a lot of stuff for me with Man of Steel just didn't work right. And I hate to be plugging another TV or another YouTube channel, but
I'll plug them. I'm fans of many.
See, I know I posted it in our chat, but Movie Bob, he has a great 3-part breakdown on, because he usually does series called Really That Good, where he just analyzes films that we've always thought were good and asks, is it really that good? Now in hindsight, like Die Hard, Spider-Man 1 and 2, and he ignores 3, and a few other movies. And for the one time, he says, all right, well, is BVS really that bad? And he breaks it down for 3 parts. The first 2 are like an hour and a half, and then the last one's an hour. And he really goes in depth, and he gives credit where credit is due. He acknowledges that Zack Snyder's great visual storyteller, but sometimes just story itself.
So I'm not going to tell you anything new that you'd already know.
I mean,
it's doubtful.
No, I'd still love to hear your opinion about it and everything, but he does a great job of breaking it down. And by all means, outside of this conversation, check it out. Movie Bob Reviews. He's on geek.com and some other stuff. I will plug the crap out of him because he has some great videos, great ideas. He pitches stories for Marvel movies. He had a hell of a great idea for how he would introduce Spider-Man into the Marvel universe.
I mean, we should put it in when we upload this.
Yeah.
Because another one is Comics Explained. I am part of the Rob Corps. Man, if you don't know, he can educate the shit out you.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's really good.
I've seen some of his videos. He's enjoyable.
Yeah.
So, But yeah, it's just so many parts. Like one of the main things for me was storytelling wise. He wants to have Zack Snyder wants to have more visuals and spectacle versus full story beat moments. And one of my biggest issues is these overlong, overdrawn fight scenes, which annoys me personally.
Can you
because
give me an example?
We'll focus on just
Steel.
Man of Steel specifically.
Yeah, Man of Steel.
Super overdrawn, where he's fighting the first 2 Kryptonians and then he's fighting Zod for these long stretches of time, which visually beautiful by all means.
It was like Dragon Ball Z in real life.
And I'm willing to grant it that, but for the sake of storytelling, that does not work in that runtime for me, because I got bored personally. Like, it's visually nice, but it's really not. And I'm a person who will randomly YouTube fight scenes just because it's like, yo, if it's really that good, The Raid 2, I will watch it.
there.
I will watch it again and again. I own the DVDs and I'll just still YouTube the fight scenes every so often.
Yeah, it's like Daredevil season 1 and 2.
Exactly,
Fight scenes are insane.
exactly. But with Zack Snyder stuff, it's like, I don't have 15 minutes for literally just punching. Because they're not doing anything else. Because they can't, and that's the other thing about it, is that they're not doing anything else, and they're not doing anything that's really impactful to the other person, because they're both sides, when he's fighting the 2 Kryptonians and he's fighting Zod, they've already established quickly that both sides are impervious to the pain, essentially.
So,
and to really feeling the physical effects of, I'm going to punch you, and then I'm going to punch you, and then you punch me, and you punch me, and I punch you, and then I grab something and I hit you with it, and it breaks apart, and now we're flying through buildings, and then we're slamming through the buildings, and we're doing this, and we're endangering all these people. Yeah, I know it's cliche to talk about the casualties, but it's still a factor. I feel like you have to still mention that, but it's just constantly punching back and forth, and then at some point, all right, it's not doing anything. So as a director, you need to edit that down, I think, or a storyteller, edit that down, because again, I got bored in hindsight. In the moment, spur of the moment, first time watching the movie, all right, I'm enjoying it, boom, 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 boom. Thinking back on it, I'm bored.
see, for me, the fight scene wasn't the problem, but I understand why you feel that way.
One problem. Not the problem. Of the movie.
The thing with me, with Man of Steel, I loved the time on Krypton.
Oh yeah, that
It
was great.
Excellent world building. And then you yanked me out of it. And to be honest, I remember when I watched that movie. I was deployed. I was in Kuwait. I watched it in the theater that we had, that all of us went to, you know, because that was the only way you know, really for me anyway, the only escape I had was just going to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember seeing it, and I was watching Man of Steel and thinking, man, this was good, but it wasn't great. It was like one of those things for me that was like an acquired taste. As time went on, I had more appreciation for it, and I started to analyze more of the psychology of it. But there were so many things that I just didn't understand why they were executed. Like, you got me so invested into what was happening on Krypton. Why didn't I just get a movie about Krypton? I would have preferred a movie about Krypton. Tell me everything from how maybe Brainiac has something to do with why the planet is in this state, or whatever where you want to go, to the point where they send Clark to Earth, and then hit me with the story of Superman. Do that. That would have, I think that for me personally, that would have just made me so happy. But touching to the point where, just from moving forward from when Clark lands Pete's side, there were issues. I don't have a problem with the serious tone of it, because I felt like psychologically they were trying to establish the fact that this is new for everybody. Here's an adjustment period. But I have to always be completely honest. There were things like, this is, like you said, cliche. I don't care who your dad is. If you see him going to be taking on by a tornado and you're Superman, yeah, he'll yell at you, he'll be pissed, but I would think anyone with common sense or sanity would be like, hey, listen, get the hell with that. You didn't have a problem saving a bus full of kids, and that was against your dad's orders, but when it's actually time to save him, you didn't do it. I know people love their dogs. I don't know if anybody realistically is going to run in the middle of a tornado to get a dog out of a truck.
I mean, you got to in a movie, though.
In the movie, you're a dick if you don't.
Yeah.
If you don't save an animal in a movie, you are a dick.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you save the earth later on. So there's that, and then originally I was not thrilled about about Zod being the villain, because we've seen Zod before.
I think even kind of touching back on everything. Yeah, with the Krypton stuff, it definitely could have been shortened out. We still could have had a much shorter prologue, essentially. Still had the impact, still got the backstory, still felt a understanding for Zod and a fear of Zod in that process. And still gotten the effect of what they needed to do. And I do think Zod was an okay choice. Maybe casting wasn't terrible, although I still love the Michael Shannon. I will find him, you know, his delivery in it, yeah. Surprisingly worked well, and I mean, he was still intimidating, even though he was a skinny guy, but
I don't think there's a role that Michael Shannon can't deliver on.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, he's amazing. The cast itself is a great cast.
It is, but it really had some parts that just bothered me. That as a whole, I mean, maybe not cringeworthy. The real, you mentioned the more darker, realistic aspect, and
that's what Superman is.
It's one of those situations between the 3 Zack Snyder movies, and again, I'm quoting Movie Bob a little bit on this one, so because I'm a terrible person and I don't have too many original ideas. But he points out the fact that, especially with BVS, is that, and a lot of fans who can try to defend it also use the same argument of, all right, well, you want it to be so much more like the comics. That's your issue why you don't like X, Y, and Z. But then you're in the process of making the movie, you're expecting me to accept things because it's from the comic. Mm-hmm. And you can't have it both ways. Either you're going to have a full departure and cut everything off from the comic books and do this as Superman of what he is and what he's about, of what you think of who you think Superman is, what he's about, and how the world will accept him. Or you're going to take some influence from the comic book and still create your own vision of it, like Marvel does, and tweak things to reflect today's age, but don't try to tell me it can go. You basically don't try to flip flop on it, and
commit
to either way. Yes, and one aspect of it is, but even saying that, I guess I'm backtracking myself.
No, you're fine. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, you have to be decisive on what kind of story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, but I guess I'm backtracking because for me still, and I know you have the social media posts with a lot of my artwork of using the Superman S, the hope symbol, all that, House of L, it meaning hope, and he mentions that in the movie. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to mean hope. Then he needs to, at some point, show us why he would represent hope if he's going to stand out in the world and make this grand stand at whatever point he decided to. Which it seemed it wasn't until Zod or his father said, "Hey, here's a suit for you. Go ahead and enjoy it."
I think he needed more exposure to the citizens that existed in the world.
Prior, yes, and
well,
then
even
isolated. And that's the other problem. Like, that whole Jesus allegory that they decided to give you at the beginning of the movie was interesting, but still kind of a waste. That he's like 30 some odd years old, and all his exposure to the world, or even trying to be a good person, is him still walking away from everything.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, he doesn't have a connection to people. I get that, but that does not allow us to relate to him. And I get that we're not supposed to relate to him 100% because he's Superman, but still Clark Kent we're supposed to relate to.
I always felt that if they had found a way to tone match the Superman with Brandon Routh,
with
the visuals of the Man of Steel.
Agreed.
That would have been a perfect
Agreed.
Superman movie.
I enjoyed Superman Returns to some degree because he was just charming enough, like a Christopher Reeve's character, which was their intention.
Yeah. He saved that plane. I believe that shit. I was like, that's damn Superman. Goddamn right.
When he took the bullet to the eye, it was a nice moment.
I was with that. And the thing that was nice about that, now granted, it was supposed to be an extension of the Christopher Reeves movies, but the difference between the two, I think for purposeful reasons, but the difference is that he was exposed to the citizens. Watching Man of Steel, even though we know that he saves people from the oil rig, even though he does these things to help people, it's almost like Batman in a sense where he does it, no one knows where it happened, how it happened, or who did it. That's not Superman. He's supposed to be the stark difference of Bruce, of being a hero of the light that people see. I don't think their first time seeing and or knowing who he is when Zod shows up to terraform the Earth. Which, I'm not trying to steal content from from the rest of what we're going to talk about. That was one of my beefs with Justice League. He's here, Steppenwolf is here to terraform the Earth. Oh, you mean like the last guy?
2 movies ago. Yeah.
That was a little lazy to me. I was like, eh. And then I didn't like, oh God, I know I'm jumping. I could not stand the fact that mother boxes were like this big. When has the mother box ever been this big?
I assumed it was going to be like a Transformer thing where the Allspark shrinks and grows on a whim because of the director.
And why 3? Why? Here's a better question. Why are we even doing apocalypse-based? And I love Justice League, but why are we even doing apocalypse-based stuff this early? It's like you're playing your big gun so early on, trying to enforce the dark side is coming. You can do dark side is coming in post-credit scenes. You can do dark side is coming in a much different and much better way.
I mean, and that's I think that could be a whole different discussion of what we thought or think Justice League or how DC should approach the whole thing originally. I've always felt it would have been, they should have gone the opposite of what I was rumored the intended idea, which was just do Justice League first. And I honestly feel
that would have been better.
I've always felt that the animated movie Justice League Doom, when
Starro. Isn't it Starro?
Not Starro, no. When the basically they steal the plans from Batman, from Bruce Wayne, about how to.
Oh yes.
Because in that way, you're able to introduce each member of the Justice League, their weaknesses, and a counterpoint that can later be shipped or spawned off to their own movie, because they have, and by counterpoint I mean their opposite, their villain. Who's been assigned specifically to take out them because of their weakness. And you don't have to do the exact movie play by play, but you could still have the same cast as the current Justice League.
Right.
Black Manta for Aquaman, and somebody for Chitara, sure for, well actually they didn't even use Chitara in the animated movie for Wonder Woman, but
no.
They just made her hallucinate Chitara. Oh no, excuse me, Cheetah, not Chitara.
Because I was like, maybe he has a different way of pronouncing it.
Cheetah.
I was like, Chitara, okay.
Not Chitara, because it's not Thundercats. But
that's where you. Damn, I knew I heard that name before. I was like, that's not a DC character. I was like, maybe he's just pronouncing it different.
A lot of pop culture stuff randomly in here that's useless. Not that Thundercats is useless, but I felt like that would have been a much better approach, because you can still get backstories, reintroduce us to these new characters, or introduce us for the first time for these new characters. Like seeing Flash having to run through most of the movie, and maybe he has flashbacks to his life flashing before his eyes, before he could, Batman tells him how to get out of the explosive on his wrist or whatever.
I mean, the options are limitless. They could have done that. They could have done Justice League War. Well, then again, though, that's me backpedaling, because that's starting out with Darkseid, and I do think that's just an epic mistake the first time. There's only so many, both sides, Marvel and DC. There's only so many of those super heavy hitters that you have.
Yeah.
You've got Anti-Monitor, and you've got, Lex isn't one.
Lex can be.
He can be, but okay, I'm gonna be honest. I've never seen Lex Luthor portrayed right ever. I've seen people do a good job acting as him, like Kevin Spacey. But when I think of Lex Luthor, which I think a lot of people think of Lex Luthor. I think of Lex Luthor from the Justice League animated series.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor was fit. He was capable. Every Lex Luthor I've seen has been old, sickly looking. It's not. He's effectively the opposite of Bruce, except he's not the same in terms of his investigative skills and as a combatant.
And even, I guess, piggybacking off of that, again, Movie Bob, Part 3. He has a great pitch of how he would have approached BVS, which would have been drop Batman altogether.
Yeah, I don't think Batman should have. I think, first of all, let me tell you, there's so many. As much as I love BVS, especially the extended version, I really, really enjoy the extended version. And you and me talked about this on Facebook. The things that bother me, why was Metropolis and Gotham across the bay?
Yeah, that made no sense. Yeah, again, a lot of bad decisions when we get to BVS.
Does Batman seem, or Bruce seem like the kind of person, if shit is popping off at Metropolis, he's just gonna ignore it?
Well, more so, Soups, you're protecting your city over there, but I got some issues over here across the lake. Can you come over here and take care of this? Or you got a problem when I brand people because I got issues with what happens over here. Right. Now you want to be high and mighty when you didn't come over here. And, and that makes me think of that. Yeah, and that makes me think of the SNL skit that was just a few weeks ago where Bruce Wayne was hosting like a function for Gotham City youth, and it was all the SNL black actors were on there, and they're like, yeah, can you tell your man Batman? He like broke my cousin Ray's arm in like 3 places. He was just trying to sell a dime bag. Like, it wasn't that serious, was it? And they're all talking to Bruce Wayne, like making these suggestions about this and that. It's worth checking it. Yeah, like can you tell your boy Batman to kind of lighten up a little bit? Like he's only ever protecting our side when it's just like a small drug deal or something. Like it's not that big of a deal. What about the corporate folk across the street? So it's a pretty biting sketch. But yeah, his suggestion is take Batman out the movie altogether and replace most of Batman's scenes with Lex Luthor. Yep. So to the point where you have a person who, on the surface, has his issues and deep down has a deeper concern or a deeper problem, inferiority complex or whatever. But even to the point of setting it up where Lex has his battle armor and goes to set the same kind of trap and set the same kind of fight scene, and then has Doomsday as a backup weapon.
See, here's my beef with
But watch his all 3 parts by all means, and especially the last part where he suggests that, and to get the full scope, because I'm not doing it any justice, but he's phenomenal.
So here's the thing. I'll start with the things I disliked about BVS, and I'll go into the things I liked about it. Like I said, I hated that the 2 cities were across the bay from each other.
Stupid decision.
Gotham is effectively New York and Chicago made into one, and
stupid decision.
Right. Metropolis is like LA and Seattle.
Because again, best aspect of the Batman Superman Adventures TV show was the one crossover episode where they brought in Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's one of the greatest episodes ever.
In fact, it's a big deal. Batman arrives on the airplane. Oh my God! Bruce Wayne arrives on the airplane. Why is Bruce Wayne in town?
Because he's here to smash Lois.
Well, I mean, eventually, of course, got to go out on a date with Lois. But it's spreading them out more to make it a big deal.
It makes it more special. If they're across the bay from each other, there's nothing for them to see. It's just too easy.
No, and they easily could have solved that by having Bruce in town, or because he had a building there or something. Yeah, he had a location there, and some deal went bad because of all the destruction and all that. Easily fixed.
Because Bruce is in the movie doesn't mean Gotham has to be either. He could have been, like you said, in town on a business deal with Lex. How does that not make more sense? But moving on. So Jesse Eisenberg, love him as an actor. He would have been great, as many people have said, as the Riddler, or Toy Man, or the Trickster.
Even on
but
that,
I don't want to see him as Lex Luthor.
His approach was problematic, I think. But I do not doubt that he could have done a great Lex Luthor. A good friend of mine back in Detroit, he
We're
was
in Atlanta, by the way.
he was backing the whole decision the entire time because the boardroom scene in now I'm blanking on the movie and I'm
Social Network.
Social Network. Thank you. Where the guy's like, "Are you listening?" It's like, "Are you paying attention?" It's like, "I'm paying you the minimum amount of attention yet right now."
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
and almost every part of that scene, if you just replace what he says with LexCorp and all the things about LexCorp, he could have done a great Lex Luthor.
So
it's just he's doing all this wild, witty, frantic stuff.
They were trying to make a Lex Luthor that was reminiscent of Heath Ledger's Joker, I feel, because it was like that worked then. Maybe we can make something similar to that degree work now.
I will not totally agree with that, but I will not disagree with that either. I can't put up an argument to avoid that comparison because it might have been that,
Seems
especially with
similar.
the hair and again his
Just
giggling and
the
just
unpredictable nature
and the weirdness of making
mannerisms.
eat this candy,
Yeah,
eat it,
it was weirdly sexual. I was like, I think Lex is coming on to you.
probably. And then you got grandma's peach tea, that's all that.
That made me laugh a little bit. That made me chuckle. But I actually appreciated that just because I was like, he's basically telling you, well, you know. But so there's those things. You killed Jimmy Olsen.
Well, to be fair, no one knew it was Jimmy Olsen. So,
An extended version, which now this is on Warner Brothers. That's on Warner Brothers' head though. They didn't want to release that. They wanted a movie with a shorter runtime, and I get it monetarily.
Makes sense.
It makes more sense, but it left the audience confused. Most people feel, not all, but most people feel that the extended version answered so many questions and was edited so much better, and it was a better movie. It was much longer, but it was a better movie, but it still had its problems. It had the fact that, like Batman doesn't kill, we all know that. Batman doesn't use guns. And I feel like that's something that people kind of look over because they're like, oh, well, the guns on the Batmobile? No, he's always had guns on the Batmobile. How about the fact that he used like a .308 sniper rifle to tag a truck? Batman effectively hates guns. There are so many scenes in his existence where he talks down about guns, about how guns are cowardice weapons, and then he turns around and uses one. And for someone from Zack Snyder at the time who allowed that, it was like, you claim to know these characters so well, but do you really?
Again, I think it's him just trying to make
Lex
sure.
killed Marcy. Lex wouldn't. I'm not saying Lex would not kill Marcy. He would, but he wouldn't kill her as frivolously as he did.
The bigger thing is just him and the producers, writers, whoever, wanting to just try to reinforce, hey, this isn't your granddad's Superman, this isn't your granddad's Batman, this isn't your granddad's, DC universe and movies. This is our whole new take. This is Generation X or whatever. Extreme. All that jazz. And yet you're just doing stuff to maybe get a rise out of people versus for the benefit of the story. It's like it's a Walking Dead syndrome kind of thing. You're just trying to elicit. Yeah.
You're really drawing that line in the sand.
Oh yeah. Well, I gave up on Walking Dead. I watch it. I hate watch it now, and I don't hate watch anything except Iron Fist. I don't hate watch anything, and I hate watch The Walking Dead now.
Did you feel Iron Fist started off strong?
No.
Because I felt like the first 2 episodes
No.
were like, I was like, oh, okay. And
No.
then I was like,
No.
man, you're unforgiving. I thought I was a tough critic.
No. It felt like
No.
it felt like a new director of course it was a new director. I felt it was a new writer every episode that had no idea what they were doing. So Danny Rand swung back and forth between whiny brat to uplifting wannabe to hipster on safari on leave from just coming back from visiting Thailand for a summer and all this other stuff, just all over the place. And
On a side note, I have to say it because you were talking Marvel and Netflix now. With the exception of Punisher, 13 episodes is too damn long.
even with Punisher, I felt it was too long. But they need to cut it down to a solid 8 or a solid 10, which is what the Defenders tried to do. Defenders still was disappointing as hell because they focused on Iron Fist.
I hate the villain. I don't hate the villain. I hate the execution of the
No,
villain.
the villain was terrible.
The hand?
The hand could have been done better. It's just Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver was not. You're not the head of a ninja clan, and you're not that Sigourney Weaver. I love you, by all means, but that was not the best role in that situation, or the best use of you in that situation.
For me, it wasn't even her. It was the fact that why are
not
you?
Not that Sigourney Weaver's seeing this. Hey,
I mean, not that she gives. Hope one day I hope she meets me in the industry and doesn't feel like you were that guy that was talking shit. I'm like, no, that was the other guy that was talking shit. I said nothing.
I still love you though.
Yeah, I love Sigourney Weaver.
I'll watch Aliens tonight.
But like with that, my beef was it didn't make sense to me that Sigourney Weaver's character was the boss over the forgive me, the old Asian lady, I can't remember her name, who had powers.
Yeah, which they never touched back on, really.
That didn't make sense to me. Why are you taking shit off the person who literally is the only thing she can do is come back to life when all of you technically can come back to life? I didn't get it. I was like, you're kind of the head. I mean,
it's just, again, totally different discussion, because that just whoever they had for Iron Fist and that was just bad.
Yeah.
More so for the writing, some direction, mostly the writing.
You know what? We skipped something. I didn't tell you what I know, and I can go into this one too, but I really do want to tell you what I did like about BVS, because that's my biggest gripes with it. I was the first person to be critical of Ben Affleck, but to me, that's...
I was on board.
Yeah, I'll give you credit for that, because I wasn't. I was critical at first, and then as time went on, I was like, nah. Even before I saw the movie, eventually I came around. I was like, nah, he's gonna be good. Same with Gal Gadot. I was critical of that one too.
I was on board of having issues with that, but it
worked out great though, and I wouldn't want a different one.
She still needs to get some acting practice and still get some work in, because she's still a little stiff. Even in Wonder Woman, it came off well in Wonder Woman because she's naive up to the world of man. So
they got the emotionality of it. That's not a word, but they got the emotional aspect of it right. Because I remember I went to see that movie by myself, and when she was disappointed in Man, I felt like as a man she was disappointed in me, and it really bothered me. I was like, damn, we ain't worthy of her. But there's that. I mean, there was, but I was really happy with the way they did Wonder Woman and BVS. Jeremy Irons is the greatest fucking Alfred that has ever existed. I felt like that Jeremy Irons, that Alfred would kick your ass, seriously.
But he didn't. Michael Caine. Michael Caine
was a good one too.
But he knocked somebody out, so. He
did knock somebody out. It was with a shotgun butt, right? Was that what it was?
I guess, yeah.
Or was it a stick?
It was something.
It was a stick, I think.
Michael Caine, 1 KO. Jeremy Irons, Alfred. No.
But Jeremy Irons is just a badass in anything. I'm gonna go home and watch Die Hard 3 just because Jeremy Irons is in it. Other things I really liked. Obviously the cinematography, done pretty well.
Most parts, yes.
Again,
Zack Snyder, stop with all the slow mos. Not everything needs a slow mo. We didn't need
Batman fight scene. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
That was the most physical Batman I had ever seen. Whoever did the fight choreography for that deserves a gold medal.
I give him all the credit in the world for that 6-7 minute, whatever, however long that scene was.
Then the Batman reveal in the cave. That was truly creepy. When he was in the corner.
At the beginning, I did like that because it added an air of supernatural that the average man would probably have when they see Batman anywhere, and they needed a movie needs to focus more on that versus just having him in BVS for that one little bit.
And you know what? I think I just discovered why I like BVS so much, because Batman for me that's my favorite fictional character ever, period, in the story for me. And they did him the most justice out of maybe any Batman movie I've seen. Like, he was a physical, dominating,
killing.
fearful presence. The killing?
Him killing everybody.
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about a title of a movie. I was
Oh,
like,
no.
what? Yeah, no, that part was off. However, and the use of guns, that too. But in terms of his presence and how he strikes fear into criminals and the way that he does it, it did it for me. It really did it for me.
I give Nolan a little bit more credit. I think Batman Begins, them breaking down why he's using fear and then how he uses fear in those movies, I think was better suited.
Gave you a more whole.
Yeah, just because.
Explanation.
Yeah, because even the first time he was Batman in the cargo area, the shipping carrier.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say when he had put on the ski mask for the first time and remember he held up Gordon with the stapler in his apartment.
Yeah. No, I mean that one, not so much on that one. More so with the cargo shipping, of taking them out one by one, and you're seeing some shadow that just took out your homeboy, and then that last guy where he's like seriously looking around, shooting around, and who are you? And where are you? Right here.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of people have said. I agree with that one. That the Batman we saw in Batman v Superman is more so reminiscent to the one that we see in the Arkham games. His ability to like take down.
Well, yeah, the fight scene. Yeah. And that's because Christopher Nolan, great at a lot of things. Fight scenes, all of those movies, fight scenes are terrible. Jump cuts and
oh, you mean in the Dark Knight trilogy?
Yeah, all three of those. Christopher Nolan's terrible with the physical hand-to-hand fight scene. So
I thought he did. Yeah.
And that's the other reason.
They don't compare. They sure as hell don't compare.
Yeah, not much will. But all three of those movies compared to the Zack Snyder's one Batman fight scene. Great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And Zack Snyder, I love you for that.
I wanted that, and I was disappointed that we didn't get more of that in Justice League. But it's not about him.
And honestly, some of the killing in that scene, I'm okay with.
In what, Justice League?
No, I'm sorry.
In Batman v Superman?
In BVS, in that warehouse fight scene, some of the killing that he does in that one, I'm okay with. In fact, most of that scene, I'm okay with. The only one I'm like, all right, that may have been partially kind of excessive is when he takes he swings the giant box into the guy and you see
his head bounces off. Yeah, I was like,
blood all over it.
I was like, now don't get me wrong, I love. And that's another thing why I like Batman BVS is because I like dark movies. I can appreciate the fact that Marvel has a lighter tone. I really enjoyed when they released that Batman v Superman is going to be a dark film. And I was like, cool, I'm with that because I need variation. But, and it's me, as much as I love like stuff like that, when he threw that box in his head bounced, I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
They probably should have just made the box shatter on him, and it's like, all right, I'll accept it, like it broke down on him, and he's like, underneath it, but hope that's a GIF, or GIF, whatever, but yeah, splattering, and even without the splatter, that, and maybe if he could have done something differently than shooting the tanker.
Yeah, that was not very Batman-like.
Especially because, all right, now we got to accept that somehow fire's not going to still engulf you two. And I'm not scientific at all.
He didn't just kill him with that shot. He killed the other people in the room minus Martha Kent.
Right, and somehow that leap of faith that he's going to get across the room and still cover over, and your whole suit, everything's about you is that fire.
I feel like Batman would have like shot him in the knee.
Something, yeah. I do just wish that last bit of the scene was done differently. But everything up until then was phenomenal. I'm gonna come in on the floor below. I'm gonna take them all out. I'm gonna pop up. Just everything, how they break down that scene. I hope you're playing it while we're watching it to some degree. I don't know, just so whoever's watching this can see it again.
I do have one thing negative to say about the DC movies. Please stop with the product placement. For God's sakes, I know you're sponsored by Mercedes. Everybody cannot afford to drive a Mercedes.
Or fly Turkish Airlines.
Right. Or in BBS, everybody had like the top tier Dodge vehicle, like the Hellcat, and I'm like, dude, can't everybody afford that? Like, give it a rest.
I mean, that's not going to bother me as much as just the fact of it wasn't well written, in my opinion. It wasn't well put together. It just wasn't well executed. And I agree. I don't do film. I don't write film. I don't edit film. I've edited before.
It's funny, I do all of that.
and
But I can understand why you would say some of that.
it just wasn't well executed, and
Batman v Superman was written in a way that I think they assumed that fans only of comics would understand every happening. They didn't write it in a way where your standard average consumer who knows jack crap about comics would understand
which
it.
is the departure or the main point that makes them different from Marvel. Where I think Marvel is, hey, you ain't got to know anything about this character. We're going to tell you what you need to know,
But-
and you're going to come in and enjoy it. And
But
even if you don't have fun,
There is a but, though.
go on.
Again, I know you're going to kill me, because I feel like you cringe every time I say it.
Let's see.
But again, the extended cut makes it almost idiot proof in a sense of you understand how these. The only thing, like, when I went to see the theatrical version, and again, I walked out that theater probably being the only person like smiling ear to ear, but like even I can admit at the time I was like, I don't understand why they thought Superman killed those people in the Middle East. And then I watched the extended cut and I watched how he burned the bodies. Like, oh, now I get it. They think that he did it with his heat vision.
But my counter to that is that whole subplot was not needed in the movie.
Of what happened in the Middle East?
What happened in the Middle East, that everything leading up to that, and then including with, I mean, I didn't watch the extended cut. I've seen some of the scenes that were added in. So when old girl gets taken out by KG Beast, and
I often reimagine how I would remake a movie, and as much as I enjoy Batman v Superman, if time was rewinded and the good Lord above said, "Thou shall make DC movies," I wouldn't have made I'm not to say I wouldn't have made BVS at all, but by the time I made BVS, it would have been like the last movie, and true to the Frank Miller comics, where the president, maybe even President Luthor, is saying, Superman would never take orders from Luthor, but maybe the president is saying, like in the Dark Knight comics, I need you to deal with this because he's becoming a problem in his old age.
I mean,
that in a respect, I would have done that, because if it was me, I really would have started. I think their original idea of starting with Green Lantern was a good idea. It's just that they did not, again, to what you were saying, execute well on Green Lantern.
well, to give DC some credit, you have Man of Steel, and with my issues on that, all right, it is what it is. Their original pitch or premise for BVS, I will admit I like, where maybe you didn't need to have Batman be that old, but his beef with Superman on just this kind of power, this kind of destruction, it's unheard of, and there needs to be some level of a contingency. Like, he may not need to have a full-on hard-on to killing him as much as he does, and you could have rewritten that. But I like what they entered the movie with, and especially that opening scene. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty dope.
I'll give them some credit for that. There's parts of it that still logically it's hard to turn off. Like,
Why did you have to wait for Bruce to call you to tell you to get the hell out the building?
You're seeing destruction. Like, go. They might come through the building any moment now, and they're clearly not going to be stopped by human flesh.
And you're on the 40th floor on the phone.
Go, leave, run, take the stairs, not the elevator, because that's not safe. Well, not that anything's safe in that situation, but
No.
I'll give them credit that they started from a interesting place given what they had with Man of Steel. But I would have done Man of Steel not completely different, parts of it differently, and just the whole DCEU just needed to get reworked or approached differently.
I think you might get your wish, man, because they made a
Flashpoint.
No. I don't really.
Not talking about that. All right.
I don't. No, it's not that I'm not talking about it. I just don't look to Flashpoint as the beacon of hope to change things. Like, now, I'm sure you know the narrative. Ben is talking about staying. Oh, I'm not gonna leave. Oh well, probably gonna leave. Trying to find a graceful way out. Then we hear that Jake Gyllenhaal wants to roll, and can't remember the other gentleman's name. He looks a lot like a Bruce Wayne. I can't remember his name though. I feel bad about that. But Ham, something Ham.
John Hamm.
John Hamm. Thank you.
Again, useful knowledge. You're useless.
That's why you're here. That's why we're here together to help each other out. But and now Ben, the rumor is going around that Ben is now having second thoughts about leaving. And it's like, man, listen, this it's not him. I don't fault Ben for where he's at, but it's the whole universe as a whole. All these inconsistencies, like they'll come out with a slate. And granted, Marvel does the same thing. They'll come out with slates and they'll make some changes. Like remember, Humans was originally supposed to be a movie. It wasn't supposed to be a show. But it's just like you gotta stick to your guns with some stuff. And I don't know why they want to use Flashpoint. If they were going to use, if they're going to try to get a different Batman, why would you use Flashpoint instead of just using the Lazarus Pit? Why wouldn't Ben Affleck walk in as Bruce and Jake Gyllenhaal walk out as a younger version?
Because I think in that case you're one asking both to be in the same movie, and that's one more money. Two. The Lazarus Pit, I don't think really offers the opportunity to change things up as easily as Flashpoint without having to provide too much explanation. Because you can do Flashpoint and establish in the movie, all right, people going in, having already seen BVS and Justice League, maybe since Justice League, I remember that was another conversation. It bombed. But having seen those and expecting Ben Affleck, and when you have the initial initial start of Flashpoint, and all of a sudden, all right, we're establishing this isn't Bruce Wayne anymore. Now this is Thomas Wayne, and you have Jeffrey Dean Morgan or whoever you cast for it. If they keep Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
As Thomas, yeah.
As Thomas Wayne.
I hear he wants to do it.
And he would be good at it, sure. He's got the Negan beard and everything.
I just don't want him to do the Negan hip thrust. What do we have here, Joker? Yeah. Like, what are you doing right now?
Martha.
Very rapey vibe when he does that.
Even though he's against rape, it's weird.
Yeah, ironically.
But by them establishing that early on in the movie, and having us with that Batman, that should probably wipe the taste and expectations of Batman out of our mouth, because now we're getting this completely different Batman. Although now he uses guns, so what's the difference, Ben? That wasn't your fault. I'm sorry, Ben.
It's not his fault.
It's not your fault for that. But
we love you as Batman. We don't want you to leave.
Again, what's the difference, though? I mean, if you need to leave, leave.
I don't want you to leave.
Look, I want someone who
take my money. Don't leave.
I want someone that's as dedicated as Hugh Jackman. Okay. Not just do what you need to do.
No, that's fair.
If you got your personal issues, whatever.
What Warner Brothers though what they really need to do is they need to give him or honor the deal they originally made with him, saying that hey, you're gonna have sex. That's really what he wants. He wants a certain amount of creative control, not just showing up and acting. He was under the belief.
Yeah.
He was under the belief that he was writing direct. And the thing about Ben that's nice is he is actually a fan of the character.
And a great director. But it's just, that's the other issue on.
And at this point, what do you have to lose? As much as I think I love the DCU minus Suicide Squad, but it's not about what me as an individual. Like the collective is not thrilled about it. So at this point, what do you have to lose? Give the man what he wants, and let's do everything you can to keep him, because that is what people are now. People will always look at Heath Ledger as their Joker, and until we get a better Batman, people are always going to look at Ben Affleck as their Batman. Why would you sabotage that? Well, maybe Michael Keaton. That's arguable, but
yeah, Batman's been recast so many times that everyone's going to have their opinions on that one.
Let's be honest. The one definitive Batman is always going to be Kevin Conroy.
Of course.
But second to that, in terms of what has been the most Batman-esque, aside from the killing, is probably Ben Affleck.
And that's a whole nother debate. For another time, another video of the most Batman is
maybe next week's episode.
Maybe next week, sure. I mean, but he just needs to do what he needs to do, and if he is unable to mentally be there right now for whatever reason, because he has some personal demons he's working through right now.
Does he really?
Yeah, there's some stuff going on. I don't want to put his business out there.
Yeah.
I guess you could.
This isn't the fucking.
I guess you can Google it, so it's not really a big thing. But yeah,
I hate those shows where they start getting into guess who's dating who or guess who's getting divorced. Like, it's none of my business. It's none of yours either.
But yeah,
frankly.
he's dealing with some personal demons right now that that's been making him want to rethink things, and that's perfectly fine. Which is why I'm perfectly okay with if he needs to back out, he needs to back out.
I just love him as a creator and definitely as a brute. I actually liked him as Matt Murdock, and I didn't think that Daredevil movie was.
It wasn't terrible. It could have been a lot better though.
I think they just messed up Bullseye.
I like parts of Bullseye, it's just with I don't even know what the original subject part of this conversation. I hope this gets cut out. But but whatever he needs to do, he needs to do. And if they get someone else, they get someone else. And if Flashpoint is a way to introduce, go for it. It needs to be. I'm trying to remember, backtracking what all we covered. But even comparing it to Marvel of the darker aspect and not being such a narrow lane of this is for geeks, but we also want to try to make sure everybody can watch the movie, but you're not going to get everything. It's like, you don't need to have such a narrow lane, and that's Warner Brothers is having a lot of issues, period. They're too reactionary, they're too involved, but not involved enough, and they need to, everyone says that they need to have their own Kevin Feige, sure.
Well, they need to have him, but they won't give him the power, and that's Jeff Johns.
Well, he's been replaced and he was more like a consultant.
But that's the problem. He shouldn't be consulting. He should be decision making.
Well, he was also still involved on the comic book front, I believe, as well.
Yeah, so it's a lot to balance.
Yeah, you can't wear that many hats. Kevin Feige is Kevin Feige on just the Marvel movies. He's familiar with the cartoons, but he's not going.
But can we agree? Can we agree on
them.
this? The only place that DC Entertainment really struggles is the movie form. They crush it with the video games. They crush it with the shows. Especially, they did so well with Young Justice that fans literally
helped bring it back.
Stayed on top of it. Now,
but then they also canceled Teen Titans and brought Teen Titans Go. So you're an
ass. You're an ass for that one.
You can't. And again, they also canceled Young Justice. So I mean, we're all over the place.
But I'm not talking about DC business. DC business has always been shoddy at many times. But I'm just saying, DC Creative and the things they've been able to produce in every category is usually pretty exceptional. It's just they don't know how to get the business out of the way. You have too many suits coming in.
Micromanaging, yeah, and that's too many cooks. Hey, that's a hilarious YouTube video. Download, check out Too Many Cooks. It's crazy. But it's too many cooks in the kitchen and too many people who think they know what's best, and it just it needs to filter through into one person who's like, I'm going to live or die by these decisions that I'm going to make for the betterment of our movies.
Are you interested in the Snyder Cut?
Of what, Justice League?
You know, there's a petition for it.
No. I'm
curious.
No.
I'm curious.
No, because it's going to be, I don't think it exists. I do not think it exists.
Well, how do I put this? The shots are finished, but they're not, so much as CG, so they would have to go back and finish the animation.
Which is money that they're not going to spend, and I don't think they should spend.
Probably easily $50 to $100 million just to finish that.
Which, again, I don't think they should spend, and I don't think they will spend, because there's a reason there, other than the fact that DC and Warner Brothers is reactionary, there's a reason where they don't want to release that one, because I don't think it was a good product.
What was a good product?
His version of Justice League. I don't think what we got was a great product either.
Well,
I think they scrambled together what they could do, but I don't think at this point they have anybody in line in a right mindset to really make good DCEU films, other than, again,
Patty Jenkins.
But that's because we're not going to micromanage her as much as we probably should or want to because we don't think Wonder Woman, and then boom, makes all the money because it's a much better film than what you've done.
You know,
even
so
though
funny.
that third act CGI fest was bad.
I didn't like what they did with Ares. Like, I'm so used to the Ares with the long white hair, so I was like, where's the Ares at?
Yeah.
And he looked too much like Steppenwolf from Justice League. I was like, it's very similar. And then on top of that, I didn't know why they took. Well, I think this stuff. Yeah. So Steppenwolf made an appearance in the BVS extended cut. I don't know if you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
That Steppenwolf was a lot more threatening looking than the one we got in the theatrical version of Justice League.
Again, they make terrible decisions. Warner Brothers makes terrible decisions on the live action front, unfortunately, because they're and that's to one extent why I agree with your post about studio interference and that but we also have to be fair. Studio interference can save movies as well.
Didn't work for Fantastic Four. I shouldn't have went there. It's too soon.
I mean, it was a bad movie. It seemed like it was about to be a bad movie anyway. The trailers were great, but it seemed like it was going to be a bad movie.
I had the opposite problem with Fantastic Four that I did with Fan-Four-Stick.
So
I had the opposite issue with Fantastic Four that I had with Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad went downhill after the first act, and not enough Joker, obviously. And not to mention, they should have just went with the Assault on Arkham storyline.
Yeah,
that would have.
I agree with that.
That I didn't understand. I'm like, you literally have the blueprint for success, and you chose to make Enchantress the villain, and most people don't know who the bloody hell Enchantress is.
Again, DC, they're just not making good decisions.
But what Fantastic Four did, see, like just Suicide Squad after Act 1 went down. Fantastic Four, to me, failed once Act 3 hit. Like, once they went to another dimension. Because I was with them up until the point where things started going left with Victor, and I was like, okay, because the animation was cool, the actors were all really good.
Even the one scene when Victor comes back and it's a tracking shot behind his head as he's walking down the hall and he's like making everybody's head explode. That shot was actually good. I liked that little bit. I hate that they didn't explain like what exactly his power is and what he's doing, but that shot, I enjoyed the hell out of that. It was just a lot of other stuff in that movie that's clearly an issue. Suicide Squad, I think, was problematic in that, and other great videos have broken it down better than I would, but their three-part act structure is terrible. And what you're referring, well, I mean, because with what you're referring to as the first act is the way it actually is.
Everyone, really.
Well, because remember, the introductions go all the way until Katana, and that's still like 45 minutes into the movie, and a first act isn't not supposed to be that long.
It's supposed to be 30. And the three-act structure for.
And I'm guessing when Katana came in, that I'm hoping that it was 45 minutes. And I think it's actually longer than that when they finally introduced
and it was too many characters. Katana had no business being there.
You could still you could have had that amount of characters, but again, by the way they introduce a lot of them, we already know the first 4 or 5 are important because you gave us all this extensive backstory, which you should have cut down.
I just don't know why Joker wasn't the villain. I just don't know why Katana was there.
I don't think Joker needed to be in the movie. Period.
I don't think Joker should have looked like Lil Wayne and Post Malone had a baby, because that's what it looked like.
I didn't have an issue with his Joker as much as the fact of he just was unnecessary to the story. You didn't need him in there.
But if
you could have had Harley Quinn and hinted at the Joker, but you didn't need to have the Joker in there.
Yeah, and then they really took a deuce on Jared Leto and the fans, because you film everybody. Joker is like the most beloved villain of maybe of comics in general, and you got everybody so hyped up on all this new Joker footage, fans as well as the actor, and then you come out and it's barely anything.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You didn't need him in there. You're banking on us wanting to see the Joker, but you don't have the Joker in there. There's no point.
So let's move let's move forward with towards Marvel, because they've got some exciting things going on.
Yeah.
So we know Black Panther's coming out next month. You know, big on that for
Got my
obvious
2 tickets.
reasons.
Got
Moment
my-
of silence. Okay, so
Got my 2 tickets Thursday, 7 o'clock.
I haven't bought mine yet.
Oh, you better hurry up. I got mine Thursday, 7, and Friday I'm leaving. Oh, I shouldn't be saying that. I have an appointment from work early on Friday. So yeah, that's
What
why.
happened was
They
bought
They
that.
won't see that.
Disney bought Fox Entertainment.
There's that, which I have my mixed feelings on as well.
Really?
Because
Really? I didn't expect that.
Because you're looking at 3 Marvel movies a year at most. Now
Right
you're
now,
adding
as it
in.
is.
We don't need. Kevin Feige's already being stressed out and worked enough as is for 3 movies.
Well, we're starting to experience in the film world, and I can only say this because I worked in the film world, and you know, you hear it all the time. There is a bit, and as a comic book fan, it pains me to say that, regardless of what the money says, comic book cast, I love you guys though. Regardless of what the money says, there is a little bit of comic fatigue because it's like it's how do I put this? It's just like it's becoming oversaturated, and it doesn't help that it's like I don't know how to articulate what I'm trying to say.
I mean, it's worth being concerned about. I agree, but I think our one key to avoiding that is because Marvel has found a formula. It is a formula. I agree it's a formula, and all the movies are formulaic. But they found a formula that is still fun and still enjoyable and makes a movie that people want to see. Not just because it's comic book. It's just because, I'm enjoying these characters, I'm enjoying these movies, I'm enjoying the storyline. Mm-hmm. Regardless if it's a comic book or not, that is why people are going out to see it.
But because of that formula, they're starting to become more heavily criticized than they used to be.
I think by comic book fans, but I think the general public is still on board regardless. Us comic book fans have issues, or the majority of them
we'll find issues. A problem with anything, let's be honest.
Yeah, and that's another aspect, and that's a Star Wars conversation for later. But the fact of they found this formula that works to get 90%, or hell, DC takes up more people than that. I'll give them 70, 80% of people out there are like, I'm gonna check out this Marvel movie just because it looks fun, it looks enjoyable, it looks good, it looks entertaining. Like, Doctor Strange, I don't know who that is, but all right. So now the Marvel brand is holding on to this fact that we'll make a fun movie for you, just come on out and check it out. Oh, you're not gonna see it? All right, check the reviews then. And not even worried about buying reviews and that whole BS and rumors. No, check the reviews. People, fans, and critics are going to say, you're probably going to enjoy this, so let's go check it out.
Right, but see, the thing is we have to. There is an opinion out there now that you cannot trust any review sites other than one, being Cinema Score. Like, see, and Cinema Score does not. They only give you a letter grade. That is it. They only really give you a letter grade. So, bringing Justice League back into it, amongst fans, not critics, obviously, that goes without saying. Money, that goes without saying. But viewers really enjoy Justice League because, admittedly, it was following a formula similar to that of what the Marvel's movies used.
It tried to. It was a.
To me, the comedy was more appropriately placed than, like, saying Thor, the most recent Thor. And I love that movie, but I don't know. Some of the jokes was like were just oddly timed. You know what I mean? And like,
I mean, admit Thor Ragnarok.
You didn't have a chance to mourn Odin before.
Cracking jokes. I get it.
Hela showed up. It's like, come on.
But it's just the problem with Justice League in that case is it's a poor attempt at copying at that, and they brought in Joss Whedon, I think, to help out with that, because they're at this point realizing, we have to do something different because clearly everything we've been doing previously has been ultimately wrong. but they're not accepting the fact that, all right, well, Wonder Woman wasn't excessively dark, but it wasn't completely light either. It had a balance, because the mascara was light, and then when it came to the real world, thematically it was darker because it's World War One. So yeah, there was a storytelling element to why it made those decisions versus Man of Steel, dark.
Well, you know,
BVS, dark. Suicide Squad, dark. But Poppy, dark. It was still dark. It was still punk and dark. And now we're going with neon lights to give you some light and some.
They had a bomb ass soundtrack though.
We're gonna have to talk about Suicide Squad specifically at some point then as well. But
we can next episode, because I can tell you have a lot going on in the head of yours about that one.
it is problematic.
I mean, I'm not gonna put up much of a resistance other than Will Smith showed up and Margot Robbie showed up, and that's about it.
It had great ideas. It had some nice ideas. It was just the
That
editing
scene where they
and
introduce you to Enchantress. Just the scene where you first see her switch in the boardroom.
Oh yeah, that was a great shot. I'll give him that. That was a good shot. That was a good
took
shot.
my wife, right, my beautiful, lovely wife. Love you if you're watching this. I took.
What do you mean if? She better know something.
I took my wife and she was genuinely freaked out.
Yeah,
when the hand turned, I was like, "Oh man, that messed me up." I was
it
like,
was a great
good.
shot. And again, if how you edit this, if you put that scene on there so people can see it, sure. Even though
style, no substance.
We're getting pretty long-winded on this.
How long
this
we been
episode?
going?
I don't know. I just checked my text. Oh yeah, it's 10:25.
When did we?
I don't even know. We'll find out when we cut. But going back to the comic book fatigue.
Right.
My concern on really admitting or going in that route is the fact that, again, one, there's a formula for how Marvel does it, and really in this case, comic book fatigue will only kick in if there's too many bad movies back to back to back to back. To be fair, Marvel's saving it. Some fans might have a problem with the fact of, well, it's formulaic and it's consistently just kind of coming out and I'm getting tired, sure, but they're making good movies, they're making entertaining movies, and people will not get tired of those. Yeah. People have already turned on Transformers, even though it was bad from the start.
Well, the first one I liked.
And
the second one was trash.
I honestly liked the third one.
The third one was good.
I liked parts of the third one, even though Leonard,
no, the scene where they showed up in Chicago, like that really hit me. I was like, oh, this is bad.
But nonetheless, when you have bad movies back to back to back, and unfortunately DC not doing so well, and it's not
no incentive to change, because before Justice League, regardless of what the critics were saying, they were making a lot of money.
And it's on the computer. Even like you pointed out, overseas, Justice League saved itself. But I would put it under as a flop, because if they got lucky overseas.
Well, it's U.S. My dad made a point that, well, son, they're U.S. heroes. No, was it my dad? No, it wasn't my dad. I don't remember who it was. Somebody said it's U.S. heroes that didn't sell in the U.S. And I was like, damn, I hate when people say that, because it's right, and I don't have a defense.
That is good.
Batman and Superman are known to be the most.
Oh, that's not messing up.
No, you're good. Batman and Superman are known to be the most. To me, they, most specifically Superman, they defined and introduced the world to the comic book genre. And if the home team can't pull it out, then we might have something to be worried about. So.
And yeah, it's just, so I'm personally not too concerned on superhero fatigue, because if the movies are still good, and even going to the fact that in Hollywood they had the same concern about Western fatigue, and because Westerns were coming out every year, you had multiples every year, and then all of a sudden, was killing. And then it died out, and that's why you don't get Westerns anymore.
And then you got detective movies right after. I think that was like the next phase.
And people are expecting that same thing with superhero. But unlike with the Westerns, you and detectives, although you probably could have with detectives, but we're, I think, more creative nowadays, I guess, than back then. Or you have more references. You can mix superhero movies with different genres to give you something new and something different each time. So now you do have New Mutants, where you're going to mix the horror aspect. You had Winter Soldier, where it was more espionage, and you had the heist aspect of Ant-Man, and you had the more straight up, almost straight up comedy of Thor Ragnarok with the drama with
The
it.
Batman's supposed to be more like investigative.
Hopefully,
thriller.
Batman is Batman this time, and the world's greatest detective. Which, again, best aspect of the Batman the animated series is when Ra's al Ghul detective. You know, I'm not even. I really shouldn't even try to imitate that, but just the way he says detective.
Are you Raz or you Raish? I say Raish. You say Raz?
I like Ra's al Ghul.
Raz.
Yeah,
Raish sounds like he would drive a white cat with
Yeah.
the suicide doors and pimping.
Yeah, I don't really
pimping
like
girls
Raish.
on the phone.
I never really liked Raish al Ghul. That just seemed weird.
It's a little pretentious for you.
Yeah, but I'm also, I guess, American, and I'm gonna pronounce it Raz because it looks like Ra's al Ghul.
Okay.
And I feel like that flows off the tongue better, Ra's al Ghul. But yeah, you have so many ways that you can mix the genre, and then you had Logan and go super serious with it and tell a gritty, dark story. You had Deadpool where you can go super slapstick essentially and still be raunchy and everything and still put out a great movie. Finally, Fox.
Looking at you, Fox.
Yeah, I think the original, most of the X-Men movies are overrated.
First two.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Anything Bryan Singer has done, X-Men wise, I think is overrated. Which is why First Class is probably my favorite, because he was just producer.
Man, Days of Future Past. I didn't understand why people hated Apocalypse. I liked Apocalypse.
It's a terrible movie. Another discussion. But
I hated Angel. I always thought that was just the dumbest X-Man. Like, I was just like, everybody else can do this and you have wings. That's it. Like, I don't know. I always hated Angel. I was like,
other aspects to his power, I think, make him okay. And honestly, if I could fly, I would probably want to be flamboyant. I'm not a flamboyant person at all, but I would probably take wings, like just to be like, yeah,
check him off in the club with the wings.
Yeah, it's like,
pointing at the wings. Get me a bottle.
Yeah, just to be able to just take off and you have the actual flight and that
with Atlanta traffic.
Oh yeah,
Jesus.
But yeah, I'm not concerned on superhero fatigue. But my issue with the Fox acquisition, Fox Properties, is that again, Kevin Feige is already probably stressed out as is over what he's got to do, and now you're introducing all these other aspects that people want as individual movies at some point. They're gonna want X-Men, they're gonna want Fantastic Four, and all these other aspects.
It's a moment of time.
But filling those in appropriately, and then having, at this point, you've established a cinematic universe, and having these characters be able to interact back and forth appropriately without feeling like, oh, it's just Iron Man again. It's an Iron Man movie, like Homecoming, even though it wasn't. Homecoming was good. You're crowding your cinematic universe and stressing out your resources, I think. And again, Marvel's not, I don't, as much money as Disney has, even though they want to be greedy sometimes, as much money as they have, I don't think they're going to pump out production on Marvel movies to up them from 3 to 5 or 6 a year. Because then at that point,
it will be.
It might be, but we already have had years of 5 or 6 comic book movies, and we've been okay. It's just that, are we going to get 5 and 6 comic book movies that are consistently good? Marvel's been pushing their luck by bumping it up to 3, and they've been successful, granted. But now you're still taking some of these same actors, some of these same animators, some of these same editors maybe, some of these same sound and costume, or an extra in casting. And again, Kevin Feige, is he going to get a protege at some point? Because he can't do this forever.
No, I'm sure he's burnt. I mean, like, I'm sure he's got to be burnt out at some point.
Or really just need a good vacation. But as much money as I'm sure Disney's paying him, he'll be all right. It's just now you want Disney to spend more money to make more movies within a certain amount of time frame.
So now you're talking.
You're really pushing it.
You're talking 5 or 6 movies a year on top of whatever.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially on top of whatever DC decides to do. Not to mention that you have Sony still wanting to do their Spider-Verse.
Right.
And then you got, apparently, my understanding is there's talks of a new Spawn movie and possibly rebooting Hellboy. So
Oh no, they're rebooting it. They already.
I was really hoping Shape of Water was Abe, and that they just weren't gonna.
It would have
say
been a nice
for him.
prequel. I thought so as well.
I hadn't seen it, but everybody was like, "It's not Abe," and I was like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, I've already put that together, but they put everything to make it seem like it would be a nice prequel. But I'm okay with it.
Have you seen Shape of Water?
Not yet. It's high on my list. I really want to.
You should see Wind River if you haven't.
I need to see that as well.
Oh, they screened it here.
Okay.
Oh man, and then they had Robert Downey Jr. come, and Chris Evans was here, and excuse me, I'm tired. Elizabeth Olsen
Okay.
was here,
Oh,
and
nice.
I said Chris Evans already. Oh, Jeremy Renner came. It was nice, man. Like it was nice.
This is why I would have considered attending SCAD, but I also don't have that kind of money.
Good talk.
Yeah, I don't know what else to really touch on. Again,
Oh, there's plenty, but we'll be here for 10 hours.
yeah, probably. But yeah, even off camera, I had to talk to you about the movie Bob, his idea for Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, and those pitches would be great, and even Batman. So
You want to shout out some channels that you like?
I'd have to like pop open my YouTube and really go through them. But again, movie Bob, I know some people have their issues with movie reviewers. You find a few of them. My recommendation on those, you find a few of them where you understand what they're saying. You don't have to agree with what their opinions are, but understand what they're saying. And check him out. And he's one of the ones I'm like, yo, some movies of yours I'll avoid, or I'll just check out regardless of what you say. But I like how you say it. You're entertaining, you're good. Collider,
Yeah.
they're good. Movie Talk and Jedi Council, and even their podcasts are great. Plenty of others out there, but those are the two that stand out right now off the top of my head. So
I guess first off is Comics Explained. Man, definitely part of the Raw Core. Learned a lot from you. John Campia, dude, you know a lot. You know a lot. I don't always agree with you, man, but you know a lot, and you put things in perspective. God, there's comic book CBC comic book podcast. Man, you're on top of the news game, man. You know, like anybody who wants to know like the news, like as soon as it happens, he puts so many videos out a day. And another one that's not really comic book related, it's more anime, but Geekdom 101. You're talking about some solid, always like just high integrity. Every episode of DBS that's coming out, he never just tells you fluff, and so many people out there do. So I really respect Geekdom 101. I mean, there's a few others, Variant Comics, but that's a bigger one. Everybody knows Variant.
Weekly Planet.
Oh yeah, Weekly Planet is
Those
dope.
guys.
Weekly Planet is dope. But that's all the time we've got today. We'll hit you guys with another episode next week. So, Marcus said,
Ayo.
peace. I gotta pee.
Go for it. What you gotta do.
You know what I thought about? I was wondering if that memory card was big enough to fit.
Oh.
It's a 32 gig. It's 32 gigs. So I'm like, it should be, but I'm like,
I have no idea. A part of me wants you to awkwardly just leave it on for.
oh no, it's still recording.
Oh
so you're
snap!
good.
But you should probably go ahead and cut it off because I don't need to be recording.